During the last phase of the later Vedic period, a great change came in the life of people. This resulted in tremendous growth of agricultural practices. One of the major reasons for this was the use of iron plows for the first time. Another reason was the beginning of cultivating rice and the technique of paddy transplantation. Gradually, these developments led to the emergence of new political entities covering wider areas than the Vedic Jana. Janapadas and Mahajanapadas. The term Janapada literally meant the foothold of the Jana, that is, the territory where the Jana or people of the certain tribe resided. In a broader sense, the term was used for a territory under a ruler. As a Jana or tribe became identified with particular territories, the rulers gradually came to be recognized as kings of Janapadas rather than Janas. However, a number of ancient Janapadas continued to bear the names of the Janas, tribes who lived there. Under their mighty and ambitious rulers, some of the Janapadas gradually expanded and grew into larger political entities. These were known as the Mahajanapadas or the Great Kingdoms. After years of fighting, 4 of these, namely Magadha, Vatsa, Avanti and Kosala, emerged as the most powerful and important Mahajanapadas. Subsequently, Magadha overtook the other 3 and remained the epicenter of all major political activities across the Indian subcontinent for many centuries. According to some ancient Buddhist texts, as many as 16 Mahajanapadas, including kingdoms and republics, emerged in the northern and northwestern parts of the Indian subcontinent around 600 BCE. These are regarded by historians as the earliest states in India. Types of government. The Mahajanapadas were basically of 2 types. Those Mahajanapadas that were ruled by individual kings were called monarchies, while those that were governed by a council of rulers were called republics or Ganasanghas. Monarchies. Kings of some Mahajanapadas steadily assumed great power and began to exercise complete control over all affairs relating to their subjects. Due to this, monarchy became the dominant form of state and government. The institution of kingship became hereditary and based on the principle of primogeniture or Jeshtadhikar. As per this principle, the eldest son of the king succeeded his father and occupied the throne after the death of the latter. The king would often nominate his successor during his lifetime. The prince who was thus nominated by his royal father as his successor was called heir apparent or Yuvaraj. Coronation or Rajyabhishek of the king was an important ceremony in which priests and people from certain sections of society, apart from the members of the royal family, participated. During the age of the Mahajanapadas, the king became the symbol of the state. With absolute powers in his hands, he came to be seen as the protector of society as well as dharma. From the later Vedic texts, we learn about 3 types of officials who assisted the king. These were Amatyas or ministers who assisted the king in governing the state, the Senapati who led the king's army on the battlefield, and the Purohita who guided the king on how to perform the various religious and social duties sanctioned by the scriptures. In order to expand their territories through conquest and to establish law and order within the kingdom, powerful kings kept and maintained standing armies, permanent armies, always in a state of preparedness. Soldiers recruited in the army received regular salaries from the royal exchequer or Rajakosh throughout the year. Payments were made either in kind or in cash. For cash payments, particular types of coin called punch-marked coins were used. Paper money that we use today was unknown at that time. Different types of taxes were imposed on the subjects, and the revenue from those taxes was used for paying the soldiers, maintaining the army, and numerous activities of public welfare. Republics, Ganasanghas. Apart from the monarchical Mahajanapadas or large kingdoms ruled by individual kings, there were many ancient states where political power was exercised by a group of people. These were called Ganas or Ganarajyas or Ganasanghas, terms that are generally translated as republics. A republican Mahajanapada was thus ruled by a group of people rather than by a single individual. The group of rulers of these Mahajanapadas were usually male heads of particular families. They met several times where senior and responsible citizens made all decisions unanimously or through collective consent. This assembly was called Gana Parishad. The Gana Parishad had the supreme authority in the state. Decisions were taken by simple majority and in a democratic manner. The republics were mostly located in the Himalayan foothills, Punjab and northwest India. The Mahajanapadas of Vajji and Malla, as well as some smaller states such as Licchavi, Shakya, Kolia, Bhagga and Maurya were Ganasanghas. The republics were basically of two types. The republics comprising a single tribe like those are the Sakyas, the Kolias and the Mallas. The republics comprising a number of tribes are the republics of confederacy such as the Vajjis. New development, extensive use of iron. This period actually marked the initial phases of the Iron Age in India. Use of iron for different purposes became more extensive. Due to its large-scale use in the manufacture of plowshares and other agricultural implements, it was easier now to bring the heavy, clay soil of the Gangetic plains under cultivation. As a result, agricultural production steadily increased. Iron axes helped in clearing forests, due to which people started moving towards modern Uttar Pradesh and Bihar. New techniques of agriculture. The main occupation of people during this age was agriculture. The revenue coming from agriculture formed the economic backbone of both the monarchical and republican states. Due to the discovery of new and more productive techniques and tools, agricultural production increased substantially. Technique of paddy transplantation. During this age, people learned the technique of paddy transplantation. This technique, which is still in practice, is highly productive. In this technique, saplings were grown and then planted in prepared fields, rather than seeds being scattered on the ground. It required the employment of large number of workers. Dasas and karmakaras, laborers, performed this task. Organized system of taxation. As we have already discussed, the kings needed resources to meet the expenses of their kingdoms. A number of taxes were levied on crops grown by peasants. 1/6 of the produce, Sadbhaga, was fixed as the king's share of the tax. It was collected in kind and later on in cash. Bali was another important tax. Apart from farmers, craftspeople such as potters, weavers, carpenters, etc. also paid certain taxes. Tax paid in the form of labor was called Vishti. It involved offering free services to the king. Tax collectors were appointed by kings to assess and collect taxes. Trade and urbanization. With the increase in agricultural production, people began the practice of preserving or storing the grain they could not consume. The additional produce kept aside for the total amount was called surplus. A substantial portion of agricultural surplus went into the payment of different taxes, while some of it was also traded in the form of commodities. This period witnessed an increase in trading activities, which lasted many centuries. The goods produced by craftspersons were carried over long distances by merchants. They may have used the punch-marked coins as the medium of exchange. Merchants organized themselves into associations or guilds, which were called shrenis. Goods were taken as far away as Takshashila in northwest India. Brigugacha and Sopara on the west coast were important seaports from where the goods were sent to West Asia. Society. The social setup of the Janapadas or Mahajanapadas was similar to that of the later Vedic period. The Varna system, characterized by the division of society into Brahmins, Kshatriyas, Vaishyas and Shudras, assumed more concrete form and came to be firmly established in the society. Steadily, it ceased to be skill-based and became hereditary. Thus, the son of a merchant could only become a merchant. Many people from different sections of society began to oppose the Varna system, which essentially reflected the predominance of the Brahman priests. Some warrior kings felt that they were superior to the priests. Others objected to birth being the decisive factor for the allotment of Varna. Villages grew in size and number with steady increase in population. They were well connected with each other by roads and rivers. Each village had a headman, Gramini or Gramika, who was a link between the village and the king. Sometimes villages developed into towns, particularly if they were famous for certain types of crafts. Towns and cities also emerged because of their proximity to trade routes. Religion. From 600 BCE, the Vedic religious system underwent transformation. In this age, the Brahmins had begun to dominate the religious practices. They encouraged complex rituals, elaborate sacrifices, expensive ceremonies, etc. People gradually became dissatisfied with the existing form of religion and sought different religious options. As a result, new religions such as Jainism and Buddhism, which did not conform to Brahmanical principles, became popular. We shall read more about Buddhism and Jainism in the next chapter.